Everybody to Talkin Ball Monday night's live stream. Myself, Jerry Hamilton, alongside, sponsored by our friend John Donovan over at longhornwealth.net. Each and every Monday night, Jerry and I try to talk a little ball with folks, give you a little feel for what we're thinking. There's been some news today. Of course, Sarkeesian had his press conference. Jeff Traylor had his as well. We got some good notes from him on his press conference. And then, Jerry, you broke a little news. You were a little newsmaker today in the recruiting realm. Sounds like you got some news that you want to deliver to folks. So let's get that part out of the way real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I think, learned today that Javion Hilson is expected to be on campus, most likely for the Mississippi State game. That is the first SEC game for Texas. We'll see. These plans can always change. But as of today, that's what kind of the expectation is. And Coco, I believe, does have an off week that week, so it would make sense. That's their bye week. But that'd be the first SEC game. And I've been saying the two big visit weekends for Texas are going to be Mississippi State because of that kick time window, and that's a first SEC game, and then Georgia on the 19th because that's either going to be the afternoon or night game. Again, kids can come in from out of state. They have to fly in on a Saturday morning. So that it looks like Javion Hilson is expected in the weekend of Mississippi State, along with Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, most likely. There's a possibility that could be Georgia, but there's a chance those guys will be in town for Mississippi State as well. And Chase Sims out of Richmond Randall, I'm not even ruling that one out. The defensive lineman committed to A&M, that he could get on campus around then as well. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Obviously, Joseph Mbakchu, the Florida commitment from Grayson, is going to be in town with a family member. That's a national recruitment that Texas is all in on. He's a tremendous prospect, seeing him last week. So he'll visit Alabama, he'll visit Georgia, he'll visit Auburn, he'll visit Texas, maybe even Tennessee. Obviously, Florida has their work cut out for him to hold on to him. But the key with Mbakchu is getting him on campus now this weekend, and also securing an official visit at a later date. That's kind of the key there. And the other thing I would say is a lot of stuff going on in recruiting, right? Walter Mathis, the defensive lineman from Savannah. I did some work, made a lot of calls today on defensive line guys. He committed to LSU late last week on Friday. Well, I'm not sure that one's over yet. It wouldn't shock me at all if he ended up visiting Texas at some point during the season as well.
Just a lot of different stuff going on. You mentioned Floyd Guidry. Some old names resurfacing that had committed elsewhere, et cetera. It seems like, and this is just my observation, I'm not in it like you are, Jerry, talking to the kids and the high school coaches and that sort of thing. It just seems like the world is opening up for Texas right now. Consecutive years of beating big name national teams in major televised events. It's just changing the perception of Texas. This means the 2 years in a row thing means it's not a whim. It wasn't just a one-hit wonder, like I called it earlier today. It's not a one-hit wonder.
Right, no doubt. Todd Lacey asked about cornerback, defensive back recruiting. Look, the one thing I'll say about DBs, they're going to go after the 1A guys, right? It's recruit through the whistle. That's what this is. But I always say this: Xavier Filsaime did not have an offer this time last year, and he was one of the top safety prospects in the country. I expect Texas to extend a couple, 3 offers in the secondary senior season. It will not surprise me. I'm not even sure Texas is done on the interior defensive line extending offers, which I really like. I like the net that has been cast here on defensive line recruiting. I really like the names that are out there right now for Texas. You mentioned Floyd Guidry. I've thought for Bobby, I've been on this one for a year. I've thought he was one of the more underrated prospects in the state and one of the more underrated D linemen in the country. He's committed to TCU, and he's getting that senior year look from Texas, and I think it's well-deserved.
Yep. Well, here's the thing about Xavier Filsaime. You mentioned that, Jerry, but it's just as important to mention Aaron Butler. And the reason why, when you start talking about those categories, it's not just in-state we're talking about here. It could be a guy from Alabama, a guy from Louisiana. I mean, there's a lot at play that people don't just need to be fixated on Houston or Dallas, some guy getting an offer, even East Texas. It is a situation where we're waiting at turn. All right, we're going to take y'all's questions like we always do on Talkin Ball. It's kind of a get it while the getting's good. Ask us anything you want. We do have a couple other news notes we want to go through. Before we do that, though, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That's John Donovan over at Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John's a proud Texas X Life member with a wife and 6 siblings who all graduated from UT. John's a certified financial planner who has spent more than 30 years providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation. John was in Ann Arbor on Saturday for the game and joined us at the tailgate. He could not have been any prouder of how our great Longhorns performed and how awesome the turnout of our fans was too. John wants to bring that same outstanding level of performance and support to all on Texas football fans by offering each of you a free 90-minute consultation to explore how Longhorn Wealth can help you maximize your wealth, minimize taxes, and secure your legacy. Call John and the Longhorn Wealth team, 972-707-4900, or go online, longhornwealth.net. Once more, that's 972-707-4900. Matt, our producer, is behind the scenes, and we asked him to capture this video today from UTSA coach Jeff Traylor, the former high school head coach in the state of Texas, a couple state championships, as well as a former assistant at the University of Texas. He had some high praise for this Texas Longhorn team. Matt, please play the video.
Oh, the biggest difference is we were a veteran team back then, and they were kind of in transition a little bit. Now they're very veteran, and we're kind of in transition right now. So that's the biggest difference. We always mark how many really great players they have in their 2 deep, and usually each team has 3 to 6. They're really great. These guys have backups that are really great. Like the whole sheet's marked with great players. They've done a fantastic job in the transfer portal, developing their kids, developing their roster. They're massive. They're extremely fast. It's the best team we've ever played since we've been here.
Pretty high praise from Jeff Traylor, Jerry, someone that you know really well. Yeah. What'd you think of those comments?
Yeah, so I've known Jeff for, 2 decades. Mac Brown was recruiting kids at Gilmer High when he was the head coach there, and I'd go to Gilmer multiple times a year talking David Stowe, Curtis Brown, go down the list. He won 3 state titles there. Obviously, he's been very successful, won 2 conference titles at UTSA, tremendous football coach. They're in a little bit of like you said, a little bit of transition. You're younger in some spots, especially on those lines. It's hard to keep those lines at G5 level. But what he said, knowing Coach Traylor as long as I have, he's transparent now. And I would say this, they went up to Tennessee last year. That's a strong statement for him to make about Texas, and just not even giving a second thought about it. But obviously the thing with Traylor and his staff is they see a lot of these kids Texas has recruited. They see him at a young age. They've seen him. A lot of times UTSA is one of the first schools, them or Texas Tech, to offer some of these kids when they're freshmen or sophomores, right? They're very familiar with the players on this roster. And even when Jeff was at Arkansas, he watched video on some of these kids too, even if they weren't really on the radar for Arkansas. So this is a staff that's very familiar with the Texas roster. And that's a very high praise considering where Texas was 2 years ago. That's how fast they've gotten to this point. Very high praise. And you know what? He's not BSing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. He wasn't the only one that made some news when he had comments today. As we talked about post-practice or post-press conference with Steve Sarkeesian, Synthetic Gaming Network. I loved hearing Sark say he wants to give the other team 60 minutes of hell. That's what we need. We talked about that in that the press conference comment, Jerry, that he saved that a little bit from our friend Nolan Richardson, who used to call it 40 minutes of hell on a basketball court, running up and down. Here's the exact quote. "We need to go to another level with our killer instinct. I want it to be 60 minutes of hell for our opponents." Good stuff from Steve Sarkeesian. All right, we'll be taking y'all's questions. Oh, go ahead. You had something, Jerry?
Yeah, I watched the entirety of Sark's press conference late this afternoon. That's as confident as I've ever heard Sark. And I'm not saying he's looking ahead. I'm not saying he's getting ahead. These guys, they're pros. They don't do that. But what I am saying is we listen to these press conferences, we see him. Like last year, Bobby, remember how confident he was before the season? He ended up being right. He's sitting there today. He's looking for, look, these guys coach to a perfection line, a line of perfection, right? Details. So there's always going to be things, but man, he was really having to look for things. I mean, Bobby, you probably saw it. That when you're talking about kick coverage and a couple of things like that, I mean, he's pretty pleased with where this team's at the same time, saying they hadn't played nearly their best game yet, which I do agree because I think they're going to continue to get better offensively. For sure. I think defensively they're pretty good right now. But I think offensively, as these other guys get, Silas Bolden, Ryan Wingo, Jarrett Gibson grows up. Trey Weisner's still going to grow up as a running back. I mean, just think about how much better this offense can be as the season moves along.
All right. We'll get going on some questions here. We have some other stuff going on. Jerry, you told me up in the pregame here that you wanted to bring up Lance Jackson's senior film, young man out of Pleasant Grove. What was the reason for that?
Lance Jackson, because there just aren't many guys that are 6'6", 265 that have as quick a feet as he does. But I want to show motor plays on senior tape. Motor plays. So I know producer Matthew's going to hit the play button on this. This is Lance Jackson. Okay, just watch the motor on these plays, guys. That plays like this now. That's different. That's different stuff. I don't care who you're playing. That's Atlanta High School. Yes, they may not have Randy Garner anymore. Atlanta High School's got some fast players, but this is motor. This is a guy who's running to the football. This guy's chasing the football with purpose. I love his senior tape. I can't believe you leave him unaccounted for or unblocked, but this is high school football. But then there's tape from Paris this last week, the second team they played, which is a really good football team as well. But that one play, Bobby, his motor now, if you get a guy that's 6'6", 280 eventually, and he's running 4'6", and he's got a motor, what do you have? Potential first-round pick.
Yeah.
This is Paris. I can't believe they left them unblocked. I mean, maybe you whiff on purpose on this one at that level, but god dang.
Yeah, I get you. You can't. It's hard to do that, man. They're getting after him a little bit right now. He's getting after them a little bit right now. I tell you what, Jerry, Longhorns have a lot of good recruits in this class, and that's one of the things we'll talk about today. Lance Jackson, just one of those guys from Pleasant Grove High School. All right, hey, and this is Jedi Master Bevo adds to that little comment there. Where are all the chat people that 2 months ago were crying the sky was falling because someone chose Oregon? We missed on some DTs, and Baker was the worst hire ever. Turn around, and a month later, all of a sudden, fellas, it looks pretty good right now for the Longhorns in recruiting, Jerry.
Yeah, ranked top 5 class. Look, it helps when you win at Michigan, too. I mean, that's a big thing right now. They've set the table to finish strong in this recruiting class. If they go ahead, go finish it off, make a college football playoff, doesn't mean you're going to go undefeated. There's a lot of games left to be played. But where Texas is at now, Bobby, you mentioned it earlier. You win at Bama, you win at Michigan back-to-back years. I mean, they're starting to stack some have not done it in a long time type of tweets from John Bianco, right? I mean, in Texas brass. Even I put one out. First time Texas has beat a defending national champion on the road since 1998, Nebraska. I mean, first time a team has won back-to-back road games in back-to-back seasons, non-conference road games, back-to-back seasons. It gets a top AP top 10 poll team, and yes, Michigan was ranked top 10. They won in the season there since 05-06 Notre Dame. I mean, Quinn's the only college quarterback in history to win games as a starter at Michigan and at Alabama on the road at both of those. I mean, there's some things stacking up, and Texas is up to 2 in the AP poll. If they handle their business, you're looking at a potential 1-2 game if Georgia handles their business and wins at Alabama. Not that Oklahoma's not a tough game. It's a rivalry game, but Oklahoma's got to get better. But the things are setting up. Texas is winning big games on big stage that'll be the most viewed college football game I would think, would be Texas, Michigan when the numbers come out from that last weekend. Texas, obviously, Alabama was last year until you get into the playoffs. So Texas is absolutely doing their part. But here's the other thing, Bobby. If you do it with an exciting offense, that matters as much to defensive players as really good defense. The one thing I'll continue to harp on about recruiting is you can talk to like a defensive lineman. Hey, what was your first memory of football? Well, I scored a touchdown when I was playing running back in youth league. I play, what do you play in basketball? Well, I play power forward, but I like to play on the perimeter. These guys, everybody likes to score the ball, score touchdowns, make jump shots. In the case of Lance Jackson, strike people out. I mean, offense, right? So if you're a fun offensive team and you're winning at a high level and you're having players drafted, man, that is a tidal wave in recruiting. But back to the Michigan game for a second, Bobby, that's not what impressed me most. What impressed me most was Texas out-physical Michigan on both sides of the line of scrimmage from the jump in that game.
Yeah, I think that Sark's game plan played into that, right? He made Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant go side to side instead of let them just stuff the run. He did that. Quinn Ewers executed the game plan extremely well. I think a lot of factors played into it, but even Hayden Connor, Jerry, one of the guys that we talked about, who has been, quote unquote, labeled as soft at times, he had a really good game and more than held his own against those big interior guys at Michigan. Look, you look at it, and Texas is it's definitely a more physical team maybe than people have given Steve Sarkeesian and his group credit for, in part because they are so flashy at times. They did have Xavier Worthy running a 4.2 140. You know what I mean? They've had those kind of flash plays. Even now with Jaden Blue on the outside. That's what a lot of people think of Texas. They don't necessarily see the interior and Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams collapsing an entire side of a defensive line in pass pro one time. So I agree with you on that physicality. A couple other questions we're going to get to here on Talking Ball today. This one from David Rawls. Who is the home team for the OU game? Whoever should have a large visitor list. Here's the rule of thumb on OU home and away. OU, and this has been the way since I was in college, and probably well before that, I guess. OU is always the home team on even years. Texas is the home team on odd years. So OU is the home team for this contest this year at the Cotton Bowl. We will be there, by the way, with a special live show at the Cotton Bowl.
I want to say this. I think it'll be the best. I think it'll be the best visitor list in years at that game, probably, as long as OU holds up there into the bargain on the field, because it's a 2:30 kick. And I think that's different than an 11 a.m. kick. An 11 a.m. kick on a Saturday after kids play a Friday night game, that leaves you with mostly DFW kids. A 2:30 game gives some Houston area kids, gives some East Texas kids, gives maybe some kids in Louisiana a chance to come down and be at that game in person. I know the fans like the 11 a.m. kick. For recruiting purposes, I like the 2:30 kick in this game.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, got some other questions here coming in. Please feel free. We got plenty of time for folks to get their information and questions in. This one from Mike Gosnell. Thanks for the super chat, Mike. A friend asked why Texas is just now coming back to the top echelon of college football. Man, I asked the same question so often for the last 10 to 15 years of my life. I told him it was poor staff hires from the previous head coaches and player development. GH, Bobby, what is your opinion? Poor recruiting, poor decision-making, add to that list, and then I think all of that and above. And it wasn't, I think there were some issues in staff hires, but it wasn't necessarily staff hires altogether as much as it was poor recruiting. Look, there are a number of different reasons why Texas faltered, Mike. And I add to that poor recruiting, in my opinion, poor player selection, not just player development, but poor player selection.
Yeah, so I think it starts with the head coach hires. Are they the right hires? But even if it's not on an occasion, I kind of have in the tiers. Even if you say maybe on the surface that wasn't the right head coach, does he know who to hire on the staff? Because he can make up for that if he knows who to hire on his staff. If you don't get either one of those right, you're toast. But I've always said the biggest thing for me is when a guy gets the dream job or the blue blood level job, do you know who to hire on your staff? My years in this business, Bobby, I think you'd agree with this. You can pretty much know how successful a guy's going to be if he knows who to hire by his first staff hires in a lot of times. Because if you mess up those first staff hires, and I'm talking multiple guys, everybody might have one they want to change out. But if you mess up multiple staff hires and one of them's a coordinator, if you don't understand the recruiting geography of the job you just took, and that's got to play into your staff hires, you get into some dangerous areas right out of the gate. And some of that's also timing when your competition around that job, are they good or are they down? Are they up or are they down? But I think the staff hires are huge, huge, huge. And that's why from a recruiting standpoint, when Sark was hired, and we talked about it way back in the day, but that wasn't on a channel, obviously, but you like Jeff Banks. You like Bo Davis. You like Kyle Flood, because that was continuity with Sark. But even Terry Joseph had been recruiting in Texas and Louisiana for years. And Texas moving towards the SEC. That staff was built to recruit in the SEC and had deep ties to Louisiana and SEC states. I really like that initial hires by Sark and that staff as a whole. I know he ended up changing wide receiver coach. Obviously, Stan Drayton left for the Temple head coaching job, and you got much better in recruiting with Tashard Choice, a guy that had Georgia ties, obviously, and was a former NFL running back, and also has been recruiting Florida. So I think the early staff for Sark looked really good for recruiting. I mean, even the PK had the West Coast ties. Sark had the West Coast ties, obviously. But now you look at this staff, I think from a recruiting standpoint, as far as the coaches go, I think it's really solid. I mean, Kenny Baker's a state of Georgia guy. Tashard Choice you have is Georgia and Florida. Jeff Banks is a national guy. He was big in the Myron Charles recruitment with Kenny Baker. He's recruited in Florida, especially that I-4 corridor in southwest part of Florida. Sark, Chris Jackson out west. Johnny Nansen, Vegas, Utah, California, Arizona. This staff is really built well for recruiting. So that's one of my things is got to hire the right head coach. But even if maybe he's not the guy you wanted, if he shows he knows who to hire on a staff, you got a chance. If you get neither, you're toast. If you miss on the first one, you're probably toast.
Good stuff, Jerry. I will add this. Charlie Strong made up some good hires, in my opinion. Every coach makes some good hires, but you can't afford to hire Sean Watson as your offensive coordinator, as your last hire. He needed to strike a better deal than that. And then I looked at Tom Herman, and his first move was to basically take all assistants from University of Houston with him. And some of those just weren't ready for the big time.
No.
And so your thought process about that is good. Mac actually was typically a good hirer of coaches.
Yes.
But his problem was picking the right players. I mean, Charlie Strong picked the right players by and large, other than Nick quarterback sometimes. But it's been, Mike, it's been so many different things. And all of them have all of a sudden gone by the wayside. They're picking the right players. They're developing the players. He's hiring the right coaches. They're winning big games. And so there's some momentum behind it. Look, pinch yourself a little bit because it's been a long time coming, getting back into that upper echelon. Steve Sherlock asks, I know Jaden Blue came back into the game after limping off. Any update on that? My understanding is he's expected to be fine. So I know people are asking about that. I don't have anything more than that. Could Texas sit him out for a half or a game or whatever? Maybe. But I don't think it's anything that is worrisome, if that makes sense, for the long haul. It may keep him out certain series, et cetera, that just to rest him, but not anything that's major. Hey, Jerry, this one from Wary. He has still recruiting, still evaluating the Baylor defensive line commitment. Jackson
Blackwell. Yeah, I think Texas is going to watch him as a senior, but they haven't extended that offer yet. And a number of other guys have offers.
Okay. Syrup Sailor here with a super chat. Thank you very much. Ryan Niblett runs with physicality. Does he stick at running back? I don't think so. He also played a little bit in this game against Michigan. I've got to cut this play up and show it to you guys on Twitter or on ontexasfootball.com, because literally there was a couple plays, one of which Ryan Niblett came back for a cross block out of being an H-back essentially. And he literally took it to the Michigan defensive end, and it clearly shocked I got to show you all this play. It clearly shocked the Michigan defensive end. Ryan Niblett, he's small. He has no issue being physical at this point in his life. I really was impressed with what little we saw about him. What little we saw of him, excuse me. Nathan Larson here, guys, with a good question. We're going to ask Nathan this. Through the rest of this season, is there a way any teams will be able to defend the Texas offense since now you have to account for Gunnar Helms after Michigan? Or is it possible? Here's the reality. There will be teams that at times overwhelm Texas and they just have Sark's number that day or in certain series. I don't know if you're going to be able to stop Texas's offense altogether, like, say, TCU did 2 years ago, right, Jerry? But I think there are going to be people that can stymie the offense at times. It will be fewer than what we're accustomed to, though. I'll give you that much.
Well, yeah, I think what's interesting for me is this Texas offense hadn't hit full throttle yet. Sark hadn't introduced all the playbook yet. He's still got a lot of young receivers in this system. Isaiah Bond and Golden have played a grand total of 2 games. Wait until Silas Bolden and Ryan Wingo get more involved. I mean, it's going to happen. Bobby, I think the teams are respecting Texas speed so much that they're gifting Quinn's strength, and that's in the intermediate passing game. And Sark said today how second, third, and fourth options reads he threw to against Michigan. So the offensive line's protecting. The other thing I was told today, I talked to somebody who was 100% no, and this is not a knock. Texas won the playoff last year. Not a knock. Texas receivers through 2 games this year have been on point with their route running more than Texas through 2 games last year. Now, there's no Xavier Worthy out there. A.D. Mitchell had 2 national championship rings, but as far as quarterback knowing exactly where his guys were going to be at receiver and tight end, they've been better through 2 weeks than they were last year through 2 weeks. So I think Quinn has a lot of confidence that his guys are making the same reads he is. They're running the routes to the sticks, to the number, like he's expecting them, like Sark's expecting him. That's a pretty cool thing for a quarterback and an offensive coordinator, head coach. I think what'll be more difficult for teams, if they're going to respect Texas speed that much in coverage, Gunnar Helm's going to have a big year. The running back's going to have a huge year out of the backfield. But then you're just going to respect it more as Silas Bolden and Wingo get more involved, because that's 2 really fast players.
All right. Look, I think that we look at it right now, and I would say that your point about them gifting Quinn the intermediate game, there may be something to it. Quinn's going to have to keep showing us more. There's going to have to be layers of the onion that unpeel, right? Because people are going to see that and adjust and say, okay, well, let's just dare him to connect on the long ball, right? And let's see what happens there. All right, let's keep going here, Jerry. This one, super chat from RJ. Lance Jackson or Javion Hilson, who do you like better and why? These are those, I have to be honest with you, RJ. These are questions guys like Jerry and I hate to have, because there's no reason why you have to like one better than the other. You can just say, I want both. There's no reason to be picky.
Well, look, and And I would add Smith Orogbo to that question if we're going to have the question. But here's what I will say. I think Lance Jackson, because of his size, his upside, and you just saw the motor. If he plays with that type of motor at 280 pounds, boy, he's a problem. But I think the thing there is, look, I put Lance Jackson in a different category, and you put Javion Hilson and Smith Orogbo over here. They're more of the edge rush guy. I think Lance Jackson's a guy who could play a 5. He could slide into a 3 in a NASCAR package. I mean, you want to talk about a monster NASCAR package? Think about Lance Jackson moving in there in the future. So I think Lance Jackson's different. I don't think all players are the same. Now, I think Smith Orogbo and Javion Hilson, that's interesting. I think Smith Orogbo as a pass rusher, other than Colin Simmons, probably has the most upside ability anybody's Texas has recruited under Sark. Then you say that, and Javion Hilson, and we'll see what happens. Again, supposed to visit for the Mississippi State game. He had 14 sacks last year, 27 tackles for loss. He's off to a good start this year. Very productive player. I guess my point in saying this is if Hilson ends up at Texas, I'm not sure Texas has signed 3 better edges of that in class, Bobby.
Well, look, that position is becoming a position of strength fairly quickly, right, Jerry? I mean, we bemoaned it, the lack of a pass rush, and now all of a sudden Texas has got edges that can really get after people, and I think have the speed that Sark is wanting to have. All right, look, I got one thing I want to show you guys real quick before we keep going to chats and whatnot. This is a photo that we picked up. This is kind of what college football is all about. The Michigan band had to pay its debt today at their practice. You see the Longhorn logo there that the Michigan band had to do. That's good stuff. Good sportsmanship. Nothing wrong with a little friendly wager. I always like it when the governor of Texas and the governor of Oklahoma wager a little over a Texas OU football game, that sort of stuff. But good sportsmanship, indicative, I think, of my time in Ann Arbor. I've said this more than once now. I
gotta say, the Michigan band did a better job than Jim Harbaugh's Texas cake. That almost looked like that's the horns. Hook'em horns, obviously that's the horns, but it almost looks like Harbaugh's Texas cake from years ago in the Jordan Elliott recruitment.
I love it. Jerry, one of the things we talked about also going into the SEC was the quality of games. This one from Buddy Pal, Chief Big Guy. It's nice following up a win like this with home games versus there's that cake. Oh my God. That is something else.
That's an all-time great for me. I love it.
It's nice following up a win like this with home games versus Mississippi State and Georgia instead of Kansas and Iowa State. I agree. Look, Mississippi State is not what they've been in the past. Doesn't look like right now, at least in Jeff Levy's first year. But a team like Georgia and Florida coming to Austin, programs like that, that's why you went to the SEC. Having an annual game with A&M as well as Arkansas is why you went to the SEC.
Look, y'all know I just got back from a trip from Georgia and then to Jacksonville. I'm just going to say this. I stayed Wednesday night in Athens, and we posted a photo on Coffee and Football at the Georgia Stadium. That's why I'm so excited for the Texas fan base. I've been to these places like you have, Bobby. Our job has taken us through these places. I've been to games at a lot of places. But, man, the Texas fan base, this year's kind of the warm-up in the SEC. Next year is when it really starts for the Texas fan base. You go to Georgia, between the hedges, awesome college town. You go to Florida, get to go eat at Spurrier's Bar and Grill, then go to the Swamp. I mean, those 2 trips alone are unbelievable. And then the schedule will flip, so you'll probably get to go watch Arch Manning play either at Tennessee or Ole Miss or both if they really do it right in SEC scheduling. I mean, just think about some of the trips that are coming up for the Texas fan base. It's going to be a blast. I mean, and, even Mississippi State, if you really like cowbells and you really love cowbells, you'll like Starkville. That's not my favorite place for a game, but it's different.
I actually was at the Texas, I think it was 92 or 91. Can't remember which, when Texas went to play at Mississippi State. The electricity went out in the stadium about midway
like a
through the game
ball
after
game.
heavy rain. That was not a pleasant experience. All right, Thunderpup has a question. He also attached a super chat. Thank you very much, Thunderpup. Other than Georgia, intriguing question here. Other than Georgia, is there an SEC team that is definitely on Sark's radar that wasn't before? Maybe. Well, so here's the thought, right? There are teams that Texas doesn't play, like
Right.
Ole Miss and Tennessee, that look pretty darn good right now. Now, neither have been really tested, although Tennessee did beat up on NC State pretty thoroughly. But neither team truly tested. Here's one that may be on your radar, or two. How about Arkansas?
Yeah.
Arkansas with the quarterback. They're scoring points and moving the football. And then what about even Vanderbilt, Jerry? Vanderbilt ups and beats Virginia Tech with a quarterback, by the way, that runs the option at times.
Yeah.
And that can cause you problems. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, wait, we got to worry about Vanderbilt. I'm not trying to overemphasize that. On his radar, though, maybe so. Maybe not on his radar as much. Maybe Kentucky. So
I watched Mississippi State against Arizona State. I'm sure some in the chat did too. Skeetabo, or whatever his name, ran all over them. 270 yards rushing, 300 total yards. Mississippi State's got some issues there. Lost at Arizona State, who's really improved this year, by the way. At Arkansas is the one, because they just put up 600 yards or 590 at Oklahoma State. That's a huge number to put up on the road. And Oklahoma State, where are they as a team? They're never as good early as they are late with Oklahoma State, but they still have 20 starters back. And Arkansas really didn't have any business losing that game. But Mike Gundy's a really good coach. So 600 yards gets your attention. Now, what will Arkansas look like against the SEC defenses? And as the season moves along, what are they going to look like defensively, depth-wise? Somebody mentioned Florida with DJ Lagway. Look, if Florida doesn't beat A&M this weekend, then they're going to be in a mess, because Billy Napier probably won't be coaching when they get to Austin. So that, who knows what to expect with Florida. It's a must-win game for Florida this weekend. And I'd argue, guys, you don't want to say it's a must-win game for A&M, but if they lost to Florida, who's not considered to be a good football team, if they lose to Florida this weekend, I don't know if I would call it a must-win, but there's some A&M fans that may say it's a must-win, because you have Bowling Green, who gave Penn State all they could handle, to come in the next week, and then Arkansas neutral before you get into the rest of the SEC. And since you already lost at Notre Dame at home, that makes the Florida game much more important. So it almost feels like a must-win game to the fan bases in week 3.
Welcome to the SEC, Mike Elko. That's all I can say. And Billy Napier. Billy Napier.
I don't think A&M's won a home game, a road game in the SEC in over 2 years.
Oh, geez.
I'm pretty sure somebody in the chat will have the numbers, but I think it's over 2 years.
Oh, my goodness.
I think it was since Elko was the DC.
All right. Marco Mendez, thanks for this note. I love it when people that have a tie to the university give us in little insight like this. Marco saying Michigan's band is classy. They were great to us at the 2005 Rose Bowl. Their tuba players hung out with us after the game, after Dusty Mangum hit the game winner. So that's good stuff. Thanks, Marco, for posting here. All right, this one from Aloha Traveler. He joins us from way out west. Aloha, fellas. Is it possible this O-line is actually better than we all thought they'd be? Better. And how about the DBs? Where are the weaknesses now on this team? Look out, fellas.
I think the OL is better, Bobby.
Excuse me. What's that?
Bobby, I think the OL is better. I want to give a shout out to the physicality they played with. I thought it was Hayden Connor's best game as a Longhorn. I thought that was the most physical game he played as a Longhorn. I think Cole Hudson's playing at a really high level. I think as a third guard. I think DJ Campbell's got a lot of what Casey Studdard has. He's still got to improve in pass pro. I think he brings a lot of what Casey Studdard did as far as that just toughness. And I think that makes everybody else feed off of it. Cam Williams and DJ Campbell on the right side may be the best right side run block in tandem Texas had in a long time, maybe since early Mac years. And Kelvin Banks is an All-American. Jake Majors is in total command. When you can go on the road at Michigan and you're having to make all the communication calls, and then you can sit there and pull in the run game, you're playing at a high level because they're only asking you to do that if you're playing at a high level. And I think Texas.
I agree on the O-line that the upside is better. I think that Christian Jones had a really good senior year last year. So Cam Williams, for example, had 4 penalties on Saturday. Not that he didn't still have a good game when he wasn't getting penalties. My point being, I still think there's something to go there. Jerry's comment about Hayden Connor, though, rings true with me. He was given a big assignment. So was Jake Majors. Remember, Jerry, people were saying, hey, Jake Majors he's not big enough to play for Kyle Flood at center. That was the general thinking 3 years ago. It really was. And all Jake Majors has done is prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
Hayden Connor appears dead set on doing the exact same thing. And you know what I have to say about that? More power to him. You go get it. As far as the DBs, I still think that this group right now is playing better collectively than they are individually. They have, and I've been thinking about this. I think it may be the smartest, football smart. I'm not necessarily talking about what their grades are in school. It may be the smartest secondary and most instinctive secondary Texas has put on the field as a unit together in a long time. Jalen Gilbo has a sense for things. Jahdae Barron, we talk about that one we talk about him all the time. Makuba clearly knows how to play ball. Taft, Derek Williams. I mean, what do you want? Those guys are all heady football players, in my opinion.
I think you hit on something early in August about Scotty Hazelton coaching the Nichols. In that same hour open window, Johnny Nansen was the voice over all of it at the end of the day. So Blake had the safeties, Hazelton had the nickels, Terry Joseph had the corners, and then Johnny Nansen was the communicator, I think, to all of it. That's tying it together pretty well. And, one player we don't talk about enough right now, and I'm not saying he's going to be an all-conference player or anything like that, but we're giving the guy some credit. Jelani McDonald in the film room, in the coach's office, they have to really like what they're seeing from him because he played a lot of nickel as well Saturday. So they're taking a guy who's played 1 year at safety now and he's adjusted. He's not just playing safety. They're also playing him at nickel. That says a lot for what the staff thinks about where he is going as a player because they're able to put more on his plate and still put him out there to multiple spots. That's a good sign. And remember, Jelani McDonald, he's only played 2 games of real snaps. So how much better is he going to get? I just think the communication looks really good. It looks like I'll call it a backcourt in basketball that has good communication that's tied together right now.
I told you, I think they're playing collectively together.
Yeah.
I mean, however you want to define that, that's what it looks like to me. They're passing guys off to one another. They're not getting caught in no man's land. Good stuff. All right, when it's 3rd and 4, they're actually lining up 4 yards off the ball and not 6. That sort of thing. All right, here's Arch Horns. Does last weekend's result change anything for linebacker Madden Faramo out of Southern California? Notre Dame, Southern Cal also giving chase. Texas.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy that Johnny Nansen has wanted from the outset. Your thought on this one?
Yeah, I talked to somebody about that one today too. That things is just moving along. Got to get him and his family back on campus. I think USC's really made a strong push. And I know people are like, well, they just got another linebacker committed. Well, nobody's turning down Madden Faramo if he says, you know what, guys, I've decided I just want to stay close to my parents. You're not turning the guy down. I definitely think, look, Notre Dame's been a favorite for a long time there. Can't help them, obviously. But I think the whole key is, can you get him back on campus for a game this year? I know Texas is targeting Georgia, but for that one, maybe even Mississippi State. But we'll see. They got to get him back. I think they got to get him back on campus. But I don't think that hurt. But USC's playing pretty well on defense too, by the way. They go with the Michigan in 2 weeks. They got a chance to start impressing some defensive kids in Southern California, which they haven't done to this point in the Lincoln Riley era.
I would agree with that because I like D'Anton Lynn.
I do too.
His coordinator there. All right, going to say thank you to our sponsor one more time. That is John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John has served 15 years as a Dallas, Texas board member and is now helping lead the build-out of the Collin County, Texas chapter. John's a certified financial planner with more than 30 years of experience and expertise in helping Longhorn families maximize their wealth, minimize their taxes, and secure their legacy. John wants to remind everybody that September is National Life Awareness Month. Check out Longhorn Wealth. Schedule your free 90-minute consultation. You can either call their office at 972-707-4900 or go online to longhornwealth.net to schedule your free consultation today. Lastly, John sends his congrats to Coach Shark and the team for their awesome win at Michigan last Saturday. Being there in the big house, he said, to sing the eyes in victory is a memory John and his wife will always treasure. Hook 'em to everybody out there. Hey, Jerry, this is a good question that we've been talking a little recruiting here, everything going on. Jose Rodriguez wants to know, can UT get any recruit to pick up the phone right now?
They can pretty much have a conversation. The phone will be answered. The call will be returned either by a prospect or a parent or somebody around them. Yeah, I think that is. But now 100% of them, no. There's a few kids committed elsewhere. That's just not happening. 1 5-star committed elsewhere that hasn't actually done that. So actually, I guess the answer is not 100% no.
All right. How about this one, Jerry, with Jake Miranda? We talked about this a little bit privately. Jerry, sorry if I missed your answer, but what have you heard on Jakeem Stewart, big defensive lineman out of New Orleans? He's reclassifying from the class of 2026 into 2025. How's Texas look if that indeed does happen?
I need to see that I think I know where he's going. Let me see. Was it announced today, though?
He was supposed to announce today, was my understanding.
Stewart's
considered one of the top players in the country for the class of 2026, and he's thinking about reclassifying.
No, it's happening. Yeah, okay. It's definitely happening. I don't know if I should break what I heard today on here, but I mean, because look, it's not like I'm 100% locked into Jakeem Stewart because Texas really isn't there. I mean, it's USC and LSU is what it really is. And I'm not sure LSU is going to be able to keep up in that sandbox, honestly. But I've heard IMG Academy is a strong possibility there, but I'm not sure a final decision's been made, and he will reclass to 2025.
All right, a couple more comments here, then you guys can get away to your Monday Night Football. Rick Amberguy, isn't it crazy that a Texas OL has been SEC OL of the Week already 2 times, and neither one of them was Kelvin Banks? This is a good comment from observation from Rick. First week it was Cam Williams. This week, Jake Majors, co-offensive line MVP, player of the week for the SEC. Good stuff there. That is kind of crazy. Then this one from Todd Lacey. Let's get going on this one. Texas must guard against complacency and selfishness. As Texas gets more and more notoriety, not all will get recognition. Cannot allow that to creep in. It's easier to guard against selfishness when you're winning, because everybody wants to be part of a winner. Everybody wants so selfishness I'm not as worried about. Complacency is worth worrying about, because I've seen teams get complacent. I'm not so sure Georgia a year ago, for example, wasn't
100%
until the SEC championship game, and that knocked them out of the national championship picture.
Yeah, I tell this story all the time that I spoke with somebody very close to that one midway through the season last year, and they're like, Matt, we're not winning a national title this year. I was like, wow, okay, well, that's something because you're the most talented team. Too many people on cruise control. That to Todd Lacey's point. But I think there's a difference. Georgia's coming off of back-to-back national championships. And I always say this, the toughest thing for a coaching staff is those recruiting classes that come in when those national championships are being won or just won. They come in with more of an expecting it to happen and instead of understanding how it happened. And sometimes that can creep in a little bit. This Texas team hasn't got there yet. And that's why I've said this is a great team for Sark and the staff to coach. I don't think you have to worry about that with this team. Does that mean you're going to have your A-plus performance every week? Texas is going to have a 3-turnover game somewhere. It's going to happen. It's just, if they don't, that would be amazing. But I don't think it happens because they almost climbed the mountaintop last year. They got a taste of it, and they left with tears or a bad taste in their mouth. Those teams generally don't get complacent. Those teams have a purpose. It's kind of like Michigan last year. Now, they had this stuff, chaos with Harbaugh, but they got close. They felt like that they had a real purpose with that team. I feel like Texas, and I'm not saying Texas is going to win a national title. It's harder to win it now than ever with 12 teams. I think Texas has a purpose this year, and that's going to keep them from being in that conversation.
We'll finish up with a couple of quick questions here. This one from Big Hulk 24. I think Texas will play most of everyone once they have a comfortable lead. Arch may get snaps, but will Trey Owens get a few snaps? This goes into the do not get complacent. Prove it first. Sark talked about it. We mentioned it early in this episode of Talkin' Ball. We want Texas to develop a killer instinct. That means don't be counting your chickens before they hatch a little bit, Big Hulk. And I know what you're talking about. Everybody here on this chat understands what you're saying, but don't get ahead of yourself. That's when you get yourself a little in trouble. Joe Z has this one, Jerry. Is it strange? I felt no worry about the Michigan game. It's crazy where we are now compared to the last 10 seasons. Jerry, I called Texas this morning on our show a burgeoning national power. Now, some people are, oh, Bobby, you're just, we've been here for a while now. Here's the issue that I take with this. Texas is still building.
Yeah.
It's not finished. Ohio State's supposed to be a finished product. Georgia is supposed to be a finished product. Alabama under Nick Saban, a finished product. Texas is still building to me right now.
I'm just looking something up. The last time, to make sure I was right, Texas had back-to-back double-digit win seasons was 08-09. Been a long time, to your point. So it's still building. It's definitely still building. And I think what we are seeing, though, and I think why Sark is pretty confident, but I think he's confident because of the leadership and the buy-in by this team and their ability to develop players and keep those guys on track for the NFL. But for me, just being in the recruiting space for a long time, this is going to be a fourth straight top 5 class unless something catastrophic happens. They're building. They're not just getting really good players in this class. I think they're getting some jumbo, large-size athletes at different positions that really impresses me in this class. So I don't really give a damn, whatever word you want to use, if the class is ranked 3, 4, or 5, if they end up signing 26 guys. I'm looking at Lance Jackson, looking at Elijah Barnes, Jonah Williams. There's some big Nick Townsend. There's some jumbo-size athletes at their position that are fast in this class. They're getting size and speed in this class. Look, Jamie French and Khalil Lockett. Sark got the question today, which I thought was a great. I don't even know who asked it. Somebody asked a great question in the press conference. Went back to what Bobby. One thing we've talked about in here about Steve Sarkeesian at USC. They had Patrick Turner, and they had a couple
Mike
of
Williams.
Yes, Jarrett. They had big
Jarrett.
4 receivers. When did he transition to the sleeker, smaller receivers? And he talked about how when the game went spread more. So I'm long-winded as usual, but I really like Jamie French and Khalil Lockett at receiver in this class, because the thing is, in the SEC, you're going to face taller, longer limb corners. So those 50-50 balls, and Sark likes to get everybody on the move, right? But there's not many stationary routes. But at the same time, in the SEC, there's going to come a point in time where you got to turn a 50-50 ball into 75-25. Quinn is under duress, or Arch Manning in the future, whoever the next quarterback is after Arch Manning's under duress, and they're going to have to throw the ball to a spot because the play broke down. And so you're going to have a guy in a Khalil Lockett and a Jamie French who have great body control, who have some size to them, who can go up and win those 50-50 balls and turn them into 75-25. So, again, they even got some size at wide receiver that I think is going to be valuable in the SEC. I really like this class Texas is putting together. I really do.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of evaluation, Jerry. That's just the bottom line. At just about every darn position. And so once they do that and Sark locks in, they're connecting on enough. It's one of those things. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Talkin' Ball. We appreciate you guys spending your time Monday night with us. Go enjoy some live football tonight, Monday Night Football, if you will. But for Jerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison, I'm Bobby Burton. And until tomorrow morning when we have coffee and football, y'all have a good night. Hook 'em. Have a good one, buddy.